Hi, I'm Nicole Sloy. I'm Director of Professional Services and Brand here at Qdos, and in this video today I'm going to be talking to you about some updates that HMRC made to their guidance in respect of CEST and also the launch of a new compliance tool. So what's changed with CEST? Late in April we got a notification from HMRC that there would be some changes to CEST. Now, it's one of those things where it got much attention in the marketplace, but in actual fact, the changes are quite limited. Predominantly, it's actually changes to the guidance that sits around CEST, some changes around the kind of look and feel, and some of the language. So if we dive into it a little bit deeper, there are some changes to questions, but there's no overall changes to the logic at all. So some new things that we're seeing is that there is no option to say that you are a recruitment agency completing the questionnaire anymore, whereas there was previously. There's now a new question that asks if there is a contract or there will be a written contract. Now, a lot of people are viewing this as HMRC formalising the position in respect of mutuality of obligation that was arrived at in the recent PGMOL case. What we have seen is additional guidance notes around some of the key tests. Things like substitution and financial risk have updated guidance both in respect of how the individuals completing the questionnaire should consider those questions and key status tests, but also further links to other guidance in HMRC's employment status manual in respect of those tests too, where individual workers or their hiring organisations are now actually being directed to summaries of case law that HMRC are providing in order to support the points that HMRC is making. It's probably important at this stage to comment on the fact that CEST, HMRC's guidance around CEST and HMRC's ESM is actually just guidance and HMRC's interpretation of case law. It's not legally binding, and despite the fact that HMRC do say that they stand by a case, we have known that that's not necessarily been the case in particular tribunal hearings, but also the fact that there is a lot of space for HMRC to especially challenge the input to the CEST tool. Now, again, lots of people in the market have commented on the fact that this is perhaps a strategy from HMRC to bring focus to areas that HMRC may challenge in the event of probing into a CEST determination. And I think for me as well, it's tricky. Individuals are now being pointed to significantly more guidance. So whilst HMRC's intentions were to make it easier for people to understand, clearer for those going through the process to have a proper view of the questions that they're being asked and the necessary rationale behind it, we are potentially at the point where we're perhaps running the risk of flooding people with too much information that actually makes the test even more complex to complete. At Qdos, we have always taken the view that there is a place for CEST. Now, whether that is for organisations or individuals to further educate themselves on how HMRC views IR35 and employment status for tax, or organisations use it as a tier 1 to get a bit of a feel or a sense of where an IR35 outcome may arrive at when it comes to determinations. But we would always say that CEST in isolation is not robust enough for organisations to demonstrate true IR35 compliance. So if you are using CEST, we would always suggest that you introduce additional measures within your organisation in respect of your IR35 compliance processes and policies to make sure that you have as strict a structure around that as you possibly can. One final note that I wanted to just highlight is I've talked a lot about guidance, and ultimately that's been the square root of the changes that have been made to CEST. There haven't been any changes to the logic or the methodology, and HMRC has actually once again published the logic that sits behind CEST as part of the updates on the 30th of April. So whilst we haven't seen any changes in specific methodology or outcomes to the determination, what we might see is individual interpretation differing, which could lead to a variety of different outcomes. One other thing that does remain is the volume of indeterminate results that CEST can give. Now, we have said this previously, that really doesn't leave organisations or individuals with any support or any clear routes to getting an outcome. which again further supports the point around making sure that you have other processes, other support mechanisms and structure around any determination process. So in terms of impact for contractors and hiring organisations, it's not going to be massive. Like I said, some individuals may start to read into the guidance a bit more that might inform their position to change their responses around certain CEST questions, but fundamentally it's business as usual when it comes to HMRC CEST. The second major development is the launch of a new interactive HMRC compliance check tool. The intention behind the tool is to help support taxpayers and inform them about what to expect if they're ever in a scenario where they find themselves subject to a compliance check from HMRC. Now, this interactive tool includes articles, guides and videos with an aim of educating the contractors or individual taxpayers on those areas that we've just talked about. It walks users through what to expect in the event of a compliance check, from being able to decode the communication that comes from HMRC, the timelines HMRC might apply to a particular check, and also what the individual taxpayer's rights are under any type of compliance check from HMRC. Now, this tool can be used for anyone who might be subject to a PAYE check, an IR35 compliance check, and a variety of other checks. Ultimately, what this goes to demonstrate is HMRC is taking a much more proactive approach in terms of educating taxpayers, which ultimately is supporting their wider strategy around clamping down on tax avoidance and evasion. Now, whilst I do think that education and introducing tools like this for taxpayers is vitally important, there is definitely still space for HMRC to better its servicing of taxpayers across a variety of channels where taxpayers endeavour to engage with HMRC, whether it be via telephone lines, where there are often very, very high waiting lines, whether it be enhancing the online tax portal, or working on new kind of interactive initiatives which give taxpayers more information and more visibility around what to expect across different areas of tax, including aspects like a compliance check. That's all for today, but as always, if you want to stay up to date with HMRC developments, any new cases in the IR35 or employment status space, please do subscribe to our channel and follow us on socials.